Stress, anxiety, and trauma. Have you ever wondered how the impact of these mental states can impact our neurology? Well, join me today as I discuss with Kat Dillon the role of stress and trauma on our biology and even our weight. This is a fascinating and insightful conversation with cutting edge information that you don't want to miss. So come on in. Did you know that our struggle with weight doesn't start with the food on your plate or get fixed in the gym? 80% of our weight struggle is mental. That's right. The key to unlocking long-term weight release and management begins in your mind. Hi there, I'm Rita Black. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, weight loss expert, best-selling author, and the creator of the Shift Weight Mastery process. And not only have I helped thousands of people over the past 20 years achieve long-term weight mastery, I am also a former weight struggler, carb addict, and binge eater. And after 2 decades of failed diets and fad weight loss programs, I lost 40 pounds with the help of hypnosis. Not only did I release all that weight, I have kept it off for 25 years. Enter the Thin Thinking podcast, where you too will learn how to remove the mental roadblocks that keep you struggling. I'll give you the thin thinking tools, skills, and insights to help you develop the mindset you need, not only to achieve your ideal weight, but to stay there long term and live your best life. Well, hello everybody. Welcome. Come on in, and I hope you are having a wonderful week so far. I don't know if you heard my podcast last week, but if you are following me, my son finally did go back to school this week, and life is settling back into our more structured school year vibe, which I love, being a Virgo. So I want to dive into our podcast today because I have been noticing in my students and clients, and even in our fabulous Thin Thinking podcast community, with all that is going on in the world, I am just seeing way more anxiety and way more stress. And people getting triggered, and trauma, even just past trauma is just emerging. And that's impacting people's weight management and just their lives and the quality of their lives. So I think you're really going to appreciate my guest, Kat Dillon, and the knowledge and the advice she has for us to take care of ourselves. Kat Dillon has been on my podcast before, so those of you who listen to other podcasts where I interviewed her, you're in for a treat to hear her again. But if you are new to Kat, she is a trauma-informed, registered holistic nutritionist and transformational life coach, helping women in midlife address the root causes of their weight, gut, sleep, fatigue, and mood issues so that they can finally feel more connected, fully alive, and balanced inside and out of their bodies. She provides individualized and in-depth nutritional counseling, not only through listening to her clients' feedback, but by using personalized assessments and lab analysis, combining various modalities, such as building self-awareness, innate wisdom, intuitive and mindful eating, culinary nutrition, growing a personal somatic practice, lab testing, comprehensive biochemical gut immune and hormone testing, micronutrient and neurotransmitter testing. Kat's comprehensive programs are designed for those who want to find true and lasting solutions and live a longer, better quality life now and prevent health issues down the road as they age. So welcome, Kat. It's so great to have you back. It's always great to have you on the Thin Thinking podcast.
I'm super excited to talk with you about this, Rita. I love talking to you, but this subject is going to be great.
Because you know what, Kat is going to talk to us about trauma, and it is just the buzzword of the day. I'm hearing it so much. I think so much is being, and maybe we'll talk about this a little too. I think so much of what's going on is triggering trauma in people as well. So I want to, as you know, Kat, you and I have over the past few years, we've met on summits and podcasts, and you always have a very encompassing practice of holistic nutrition and food and spirit and functional medicine. But more recently, you've been talking about the role of stress and trauma on our biology. So so where did this, for you, kind of just dive in, like, how did this begin? How did you get into this?
Yeah. Well, I will say, Rita, I got into this because I was suffering from this pattern of feeling like I needed to take this big, deep breath that wouldn't go all the way through my lungs. It was so frustrating, and it wouldn't happen all the time. Like I'd be running and it'd be fine, but just day to day, I'd be doing my things, driving or working or whatever. And I'd feel like that breath just won't travel all the way through. So I did some research. I also panicked. I am prone to anxiety and anxious thoughts. So, I went on this investigation. At the time, I was studying holistic nutrition. And so that was one of the things that got me into studying further about the nervous system and further about, the mind and mindfulness. But I thought there's got to be something else besides, just it being like, oh, I just need to relax. Right. So I thought I kept hearing this word, somatic healing, somatic massage, or somatic, all the stuff about somatic. And at the time I was living in Vancouver, and I found this lady, her name is Irene Lyons, and she taught me so much about somatic. And it was really, basically what is in our outside world, right? The environment is actually, expressed through patterns in our body, things that are happening. It's not something's wrong with your lungs. It's like, really, what are your experiences? How are they showing up in your body? Which is really interesting, because we can look at a whole host of chronic symptoms, right? And we can attach a lot of this stuff to it. So then when I came to San Diego, I more recently found this mentor, Dr. Amy Epigenetics, who taught me so much about the biology of trauma and how all of our early life experiences, and some of that being, we'll talk about attachment, all that stuff can have a profound effect on all of our emotional regulation, nervous system activity, and reactivity. Even actually, Rita, it can even predispose us to having more stress.
Wow.
And so the stress actually becomes our biology that affects our ability to not only process the trauma, but to actually self-regulate. You're going to be hearing a lot of this, finding the window of tolerance, right? Increasing the resilience, increasing capacity for experiencing stressors later on. And face it, stress is not going away anytime soon, right?
No.
Yeah. So it's super helpful.
Yeah. Especially in this world we're living in today.
Oh, God, yeah.
Unfortunately. So yeah, I've heard about attachment, but maybe for the listeners, you can explain what it is and how exactly it has an effect on us as adults.
Yeah, there's so much behind that. I love this. It's really not as mysterious when we think about it, attachment. Sometimes people are really put off by the word. It's like, they just kind of just don't get it. When you understand it, you're like, oh, that's all that is. So all it is really is the emotional bond that forms between an infant and its primary caregiver. And so if you think about it, infants share the nervous system with their mom, because they obviously, it's a critical time of their life, and they can't express, really, mom, I really need some food, or mom, I have to pee, right? So all of that stuff is really communicated through the nervous system. They cry when they need something, right? That's their engagement. So because this nervous system isn't fully developed, this is why the degree of attachment is so important and has an effect on their emotional and cognitive development. and even the ability to form stable relationships in the future. And so, yeah, I mean, you think about it, it is like, and I want to preface this with, if this is triggering for anyone, I'd say like really, kind of titrate how you hear this. If this is, do what you need to do with your body. I don't know, it is what it is for a lot of people. This kind of talk about childhood attachment may kind of trigger certain people, but I'll go on. But we're talking about neglect and abuse, and neglect is actually in the literature. What I have found, neglect is actually even more disturbing to the nervous system than abuse, right? Which is really interesting.
Because you're being engaged when you're being abused,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's not only, Rita, it's not only the neglect, it's not only the abuse, but it's also happening with like the normal caregiver dynamic. So you'd be shocked to know exactly what can affect attachment, because I was too. and so when we talk about attachment, we're also talking about neurodevelopment, because that creates the wiring for all of this insecurity and overwhelm later in life. And it becomes, I'll say, our baseline, like our normal state, which can be referred to as that dysregulation, right? Regulation is our normal human state, but because of all these patterns that I'm referring to, it causes this dysregulation. So some of those few things I know that I've piqued your interest is like, back in the day when I was growing up, or even after, it was common to just let your baby cry to sleep if it was crying, because it was like, you thought, well, I'm just raising a baby to be very insecure if I keep attending to their needs, right?
Right. Well, and I think also because I was definitely in that school of my husband and I thought about this all the time with my first daughter. We said the school thought was get them on a schedule. So get them in the habit of, if you cry, but then nobody's coming, you're going to go to sleep.
Right.
And then you get on this quote unquote schedule. Right.
Yeah. And all these things that I'm saying, it's not about like how much you loved your baby or cared about your baby's it has nothing to do with that.
Yes.
Right?
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, these are normal accepted practices. And a couple other ones are, my baby started walking and crawling really, really fast. Well, actually, the faster that happens, there's certain patterns that the infant has to go through to develop this neural pattern so that their neurodevelopment is going as scheduled. But you forfeit those patterns being developed if you do it too early.
Interesting.
The other one is really interesting is, spending a lot of time in like those baby buckets or, the car, cribs where you're face up, because it's like the baby is actually really, really exposed to the outside environment too much too soon. Right. So that has an effect on the nervous system of the baby. It makes them a little bit too amped up. And the baby needs a lot of tummy time. They say tummy time patterns, the reaching, getting the hips and the feet in action. All of that is imperative to the baby's development of the neural capacity. So, the other things that we want to look at, if mom was overwhelmed, was there stress? Was there was there money issues? Was there and maybe she was going to school at the same time and there was lots of stress, right? Maybe there was stress in utero. I think we were talking about this earlier, where her adult level of cortisol, let's say in the first trimester, is actually really hard on the baby, because the baby gets that influx of cortisol that it has to metabolize.
Yeah.
And then we look at, when I was growing up, Rita, my dad's, bless his heart, rest in peace, smoking in the house constantly.
Yeah.
We were like air freshener everywhere, all that stuff. Paint. It's like, just air it out. Right.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. And then we look at, even we all know this now from a lot of what we read about, being a premature baby or a C-section baby, and about the microbiome and the microflora.
Yeah.
Even if you weren't breastfed, that is also, it's not only the nutrients, but the bonding. And then we look at epigenetics, right? This idea that it's the environment is the stimuli for the expression of the certain genes. It could be positive and it could be negative.
Right.
And there's even some studies, Rita, that kids with asthma have there's a big association between the parental stress symptoms and childhood asthma.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Oh my God, that is so fascinating.
Yeah. And then we also see this in the ACE study, which is interesting because I know that a lot of listeners to your podcast are women that are interested in weight. Well, this childhood ACE study was the Adverse Childhood Experience Study, but it was founded by this doctor, I think his name is Folletti, and he looked at obese women and the impact of disease and the impact on their lives, but also long-term in society. And they were thinking like, well, okay, if you fix that downstream effect to the society, but you also, and of course the cost, the medical costs, and then the risk factors for women and health and stuff. But here's the thing, is that women were losing weight, but then at a certain point they got frustrated because these numbers were not looking right. And they found that they had a lot of dropouts for the program. But the most interesting thing was that the most successful women in the program for the program for the weight were actually the dropouts of the program.
Oh, interesting.
And so when they later interviewed the patients from the study, they were telling them that they had experienced certain forms of childhood abuse. And the issue was that the study did not address the root causes of the problem, right? They didn't address the obesity with childhood instability. They didn't address, traumas. They didn't address all these things. So it's interesting that through that study, they started investigating the life experiences, and they saw the patterns that were occurring. Like they showed not only the sexual abuse, but having divorce in the family, having mental health issues, whether there was someone in jail, incarceration. So you fill in the blank, right? It was like, it's not the weight. The weight was the protection. It was the solution at the time. And we have all those issues, right? We eat because we want to not feel something. We want to keep weight on to avoid attention, all those different things. So long story short, all of that turned into the Adverse Childhood Study. And they find, or they rather found, this is back, the last couple of decades, but they found a predictable pattern between early life experiences and disease patterns. And I'll give you a statistic here I have. In 2008, youths whose parents reported a higher depression had a consistent, predictable increase of eosinophils, which are the driving force in asthma and asthmatic conditions.
Wow, that's amazing.
So,
that's
super
incredible.
Yeah, and this is a really, really when you talk about trauma, it's often 100% of the time you'll hear it referred to. You'll hear the reference to, I should say, to the ACE study, and you can look at that online. Look at acestudy.org or com, and you'll find the markers, and take the test yourself, and you can find out what your risk factors are.
Whoa. Okay. Well, that is so eye-opening. Now, so my next question would be so attachment trauma makes us more open to trauma. So is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So can you review for everybody what trauma actually is and what the difference is between it and the run of the mill stress and anxiety? It seems that there's a lot to know with regards to identifying what's going on, right? Like, so we the laymen, how are we able to separate these things out?
Exactly. Well, stress is an adaptive response. We've got the short-term stress. We got the long-term stress, medium stress. All in all, it's caused by an external trigger. But here's the thing: is it's here, it's resolved, and then the body shifts back to the baseline.
Okay.
So we can feel it. We can feel the worry or anxiety, and our body sends this chemical release of stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol.
Right.
That adrenaline is that first 15 minutes. It's that surge for us to go,
run,
and then
get
there's
away.
that long-term cortisol that is lasting forever. We have to metabolize all that stuff out of our system. So a good idea when you're feeling stressed, and it's that acute stress, is to actually move the body, right? Not only, walking. I mean, walking is great, but to have those like fine motor patterns, like punching, right? Like, doing things that you would actually do to actually get away and to escape, right?
Right. Okay.
So that's an acute stress. Once that event is over, the body shifts back. Anxiety is more persistent. Anxiety is something that doesn't go away even when the stress is done. It's the same symptoms. You can't sleep, you can't concentrate. There may be muscle tension, irritability, all that, fatigue even, but the stressor is something that just is constant, right? And then there's other things like, like really serious anxiety disorder. And of course, that is slightly different, where it, completely is debilitating.
Right.
But those are, and now stress, according to, I think it's the American Institute of Stress, 77% of people experience the stress that affects their physical health. 73% have stress that impacts their mental health. And 33% of people report feeling extreme stress. Now, here's the thing is that many people aren't even aware that they have stress, because they just have stress so much. It's just wired in that it's just the way that they are. So I think those stats are interesting to look at.
Right.
So trauma, now this is interesting too, because, we always, if you've heard about trauma, you've heard about the big T trauma, right? The big T trauma, like child abuse or neglect or violence or natural disasters, even medical trauma, all that stuff is big T, right? And then you've got the little T traumas where, maybe you were made fun of or something, or, it could, even being made fun of could actually be a big T, but it doesn't matter. My heart goes out to people that experience big T trauma. Absolutely. No way around it. However, trauma is anything that overwhelms your nervous system. It's not the event, but it's how your body responded. And here's the kicker. It's how much support and resources that it had at that time. So when we're talking about attachment earlier, and how when baby doesn't get that attachment, or there was neglect, or there was an environmental exposure, all those things affect, right? The epigenetics, all of that affect how the body responds, because it's almost like, Rita, that your body has, I'll give it you like this. If you have, let's say, a phone, your phone battery, and you know how, and this is just happening to me today when I was on my walk, and my phone battery, it's like all of a sudden my podcast just died. It's like it just died, and I'm like, what happened? And I looked, and it went to low power
right
mode, right, and it just stopped everything. And then, it stopped because it was trying to protect the phone battery, right?
Right.
Well, that's exactly like your body. If it has too much that it can't handle, doesn't have the resources, it doesn't have that resiliency, your body will shut down. And
Right.
this is what you call the freeze state, right? This is trauma. Trauma is the where the body goes from flight or fight into the freeze, because it's shutting down. It has to protect, it has nowhere to go,
Right.
because it has to protect its organs, its brain, all of those things. It's right. Understanding all this is really important. So let's see, looking at trauma, if you have to really kind of think about what it feels like, it's like when you're experiencing trauma, it's like you've gone back in time and you're reliving the incident over again in your body, right? It's the feeling of it all. Like, you don't know why sometimes, like, why do all of a sudden I feel like I'm feeling, or it could be, what it is, right? It may be pictures in your mind, right? But they're also, like I said, a feeling or sensation in your body, a sharp rise of an emotion, some sort of like sadness or fear. And so that's what it is. It's the experience of the survival response. And it's the overwhelm and freeze shutdown state. And that is also on the cellular level. And this is what I call the biology of trauma. This is where this comes in, is where the mitochondria, this is your cell powerhouse.
Right.
This is taking a hit. So with this happening, you're getting major oxidative stress, you're getting immune system stress, your hormones like adrenaline, cortisol, even the brain takes a hit. And so when I was explaining to you about that phone battery, that's exactly what's happening with the mitochondria. It's like your body is going into the freeze to conserve, prolong the energy that you had before. Right. It doesn't have it, but it's just going to shut down.
Right.
And then when I was talking about, I don't want to confuse anyone, but oxidative stress is really interesting to know, because if we have chronic oxidative stress, this is predisposing us to further health insults in the future. So if I can explain it, like all of our body, every process, every metabolic action that takes place, digestion, respiration, detoxification, all those things, it requires energy. It also, when it requires energy, it also, think about it like a vehicle, right? It's got energy going through, but it has waste products, just like our metabolism has. It has to discharge. Even if you think even about, that's the example I want to give you, but oxidative stress is the imbalance between the production of these free radicals that you've heard about, these buzzing electrons. They're damaging, and they're also looking for pairs. They're very unstable. And then also the imbalance between that and the ability of our body to take care of them. So the ability for the body to actually detoxify them. Right. So if you think about, like, you've probably heard this analogy, you bite into a couple of bites of an apple, and there's that browning that takes place inevitably. Right. So you can think about it as rust buildup on a car, all of these things. Once it starts, it takes over and you can't get rid of it. So that's oxidative stress. Right. And you think about, sorry. So I was just going to say, there's also, there's a term, I love this term. It's called inflammaging. It's inflammation and aging. And that's what oxidative stress is. Right. Inflammaging. You're aging your body.
Yeah, because from what you're talking about, like the mitochondria and all of the things that are getting impacted by the stress are the things that are also impacted. Like when you talk about longevity, it's like preserving the mitochondria and doing,
Yeah.
inflammation. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
So
it's
I love
every
that inflammation.
process. Every single process in your body is affected by the mitochondria that are not working.
Right. So you mentioned the trauma survival response being the freeze. So how can you break that down? Like, what are the
Yeah.
signs that you may have trauma patterns wired into your body?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm really glad you asked that. So a lot of people think that there's two nervous system states, right? There's the autonomic nervous system. It's
Okay.
the fight or flight or freeze, right? That's it. But here's the thing. There's actually three.
Oh, wow.
And so we've got the parasympathetic, which is referred to as a ventral vagal. You've got the sympathetic. Well, I should say the parasympathetic is that rest, digest, everything is calm. You're at a calm state. You're engaged, but calm and collected. Sympathetic is fight or flight. And then the other side of it is the freeze. And that's where your body, like I said before, it has no place to go but shut down because it's trying to protect itself.
Right.
So that is called the dorsal vagal response. So,
I love that.
yeah. So like I mentioned, the sympathetic is this huge energy rush. It's, if you want to think about it like this is a really clear analogy. The sympathetic is, you've probably heard that analogy, running away from a tiger, right? Your heart rate's up, your blood pressure, your blood is flowing to your muscles, and there's decreased blood flow to your stomach and your GI system for a good reason, right? You don't want to be pooping at the same time as you're running, right?
Or thinking too hard. I think your frontal lobe also gets your conscious mind kind of shuts down.
Exactly.
And you're just running on primal instinct.
Right? Exactly. But before that, if you think about parasympathetic, let's say you're in the savannah, but there's like a cave. You're actually in the entrance of that cave and you see that tiger. It's like, okay, I got this. I can always run into that tiger. I'm in control. I don't have to fight to survive. I can stay in that calm state, in that rest and digest, in that state of aliveness without a worry. I don't have to fight or flee. I got this cave. All right. So that's the parasympathetic. You're in, you have your area
comfort zone
to be in. Right. So the sympathetic, you've got that huge rush that they're flight or fighting. Now, here's the thing is that if you've got that chronic cortisol elevated, right, for a long time, being in that stress response of sympathetic activation, this is the brain doing this. This is automatically the autonomic nervous system. If the brain decides, then it could get away from danger. It does that action to complete that startle response, then all is well, right? If it feels like it can't survive, if it feels like it can't get away, that is called a thwarted response. And so what that means, Rita, and you see this in life all over the place, this is the action where you don't have an action. You can't take an action because there is no place to do anything. It's like, I can't get away from my relationship, or I can't, all of those things are called a thwarted response. This happens a lot in childhood.
Yes.
Right? We see this all the time. So this thwarted response is the freeze. This is the freeze, right? And this happens a lot. So for some people have been in such a state of stress for so long that they automatically go right into the freeze. They go from parasympathetic, right, to freeze.
Okay.
Most people, I don't want to say most people, I should say many people go from that sympathetic to the freeze in a daily basis, many times a day. It's like stressed out, exhaustion, need coffee, medicate, do whatever it is.
Right.
Or it may be, for some people, that freeze might be, I'm shut down. I want to be alone. It's a heavy state. I don't want to be around people.
Right.
I'm exhausted.
Okay.
right?
Okay.
It may be I need to eat something because something's got to pull me out of that, right?
Right.
It's a survival state.
Yeah.
And the thing about that, whereas that stress state, the sympathetic state is that state of high cortisol.
Mm-hmm.
This, because it's been high for so long, we've got that resistance now. And now we're going into a pro-inflammatory state of chronicity. And when we see that, it is also the pattern of when we see the autoimmune conditions coming in, right? It's this gas pedal, Rita, constantly. It's like the gas, and we talked about this with the early life and the adverse childhood study.
Yeah.
The gas pedal, full acceleration, and at the same time, the brakes, right? It's wired in, it's chronic patterns of threat, chronic patterns of exhaustion, and all of this going back and forth is really damaging. We talked about oxidative stress. That is the pro-inflammatory, inflammatory reaction, creates more damage to the mitochondria. And that right there is decreasing the energy. It's also creating epigenetic changes to our DNA structure that can become even more triggers for epigenetic diseases like cancer, bipolar, all of those things. And now we're seeing more biological stress on the mitochondria again, immune system stress, hormone stress. You know, people are complaining, oh, well, my hormones don't work. Well, you know, it's not, the hormones are not the cause. It's the end result. All these, they're not causes, right?
Right.
I mean, then we see the gut issues, lymph system, brain inflammation, all that stuff. And big deal is the brain fog, right? For people want to know how can I help my brain? Well, all of this stuff is priming microglia. So microglia are the scavengers in your brain that take away all the crap from it's like the exhaust system of your brain.
Oh, wow.
And much of the time we have brain inflammation and brain fog because those microglia are being primed. So everything is more overwhelmed because the body is prioritizing survival.
Right.
And we see this also with weight loss, people with weight loss resistance. And like I said before, the kind of the pathway of autoimmune conditions, we see that all the time. Immune systems being set up for chronic pro-inflammatory conditions, right? We see everything from autoimmune conditions, fibromyalgia, Crohn's conditions, even depression and anxiety, weight conditions, chronic pain, gut issues of all sorts.
Yeah. I wonder if long COVID is also
absolutely
factors into this as well. I have a couple of friends with that, and it's definitely being seen almost as isn't it being seen as an autoimmune or acting like an autoimmune disorder, even though it might not be. I don't know. They know enough about it yet, but it does seem to be behaving that way. So given all of this, I mean, oh my gosh, what an amazing layered, I mean, like there's just so much here to think about. What are some tools that we do have control of that we can use to help our body widen our window of tolerance or increase its resilience, as you say, because that seems to be what we need to do, right? Like that's
you said it, Rita. So, you know, I like to really bring it back to that phone analogy, right? Without having, or even your computer, your laptop. It's funny because as we speak, I've got my computer plugged in just in case, right?
Right.
But we want to start with the energy. We want to start with charging it up. If you got too many open windows on your computer at the same time or on your phone, it's not going to work. It's not going to be as efficient. So, and so it's time to support that phone, and you're going to support your body with getting the energy into the body. So with that, we'll go back to the mitochondria. Go back to the mitochondria, and also you think about it, mitochondria is that cellular powerhouse of the body. It's got, millions and millions of like little factories in all of the cells, and they all make energy. Most people have some level of mitochondrial dysfunction and don't even know it. They feel fine until a stress happens, right?
Right.
So until you've gone through a mold exposure in your house, right? Or a head injury, or you have to take a lot of medications for some reason, or antibiotics for a tooth infection. So overwhelm happens on both. This is the piece of this that I want everybody to understand, is that overwhelm happens on both the cellular level and the system level. So what that means is that a person can feel overwhelmed on a system level. Maybe they feel the heaviness, they feel the low energy and emotional, all those things, thoughts like, I'm overwhelmed. I mean, who doesn't say that now and then these days? This is too much, right? And the same overwhelm is also happening, not on that psychological level, but also now on the cellular level.
Wow.
Right? It's like, if I can say, it's like how much money someone has. It determines how much someone can purchase at the store, or like how much they want to factor in for the house that they want to buy.
Right.
So how much ATP, that's the currency of energy, determines what the body system can do. And so that's the key. It's the cellular energy. But then you want to also think about the cellular, and this sounds really sciencey, but if you can get around it, just think about, this is really cool, this analogy, because this is how you can really understand the cell membrane. And you want to think about the cell membrane as like, think about the cell membrane like your life. You want to let some things in, but not everything, right?
Right.
Cell membrane has this barrier. It protects itself. Like, think about your boundaries. It protects itself from the environment around you. It does this by creating layers in that wall with fat and receptors stuck in this cell membrane. And so this is fat. It's made of cholesterol and phospholipids. It allows it to be flexible and fluid, and it gets to be bendy and not break. Like, think about it. If the cell wall is really stiff, it's like it's going to shatter and break. But if it's fluid, and it's kind of like us, we want to be flexible.
Right.
We want to go with the flow. We don't want everything to just piss us off all the time, right? And so some things come directly through that wall. Others attach to the receptors, then pass on the signal to the cell for energy. So I hope that really lands, and I hope that you can kind of understand, because there's a lot to that, but there's a lot that we can actually have so much agency and control with. Because what I can tell you is, we want to do the things that help keep that cell and the mitochondria healthy. And we want to also, work on things that are just really basic. And then I'll tell you like where I would start with people. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, yeah. So if maybe review. So how would you work with someone? Like where would you get started within all of this?
Yeah. So basically I want to start, because I know a lot of people are working on doing, eliminating the sugar, right? Getting the trans fats out, trying to get less alcohol in their system, keeping the excess alcohol out, working on the gluten and all that. Definitely one big kicker is going to be the processed vegetable oil. So eating out, I'm not going to say don't eat out at a restaurant, but be careful. the fried food's got to go.
Right.
But also making sure that you're not seeing soy oil, cottonseed oil, canola oil, safflower oil. All of those are oils that heated, and not even heated, but just used, are very toxic to the cell wall and to result in a lot of inflammation, because they have such a high omega-6 content, which is very, very inflammatory and oxidative, creates oxidative stress. But where I start would be, for one, looking at what can we do to get a fast win? Like, how can we create just a little bit more energy so someone's actually motivated to do this work? And so I would really want to support, besides the getting rid of those 5 things that I mentioned earlier, is supporting with some good mitochondrial supplements. And some of those might be, if you've ever heard of NAD plus is really, really great. That helps DNA repair. It helps immune cell function and all the mitochondrial cell functions.
That's you get those like in powder or capsule form, right?
You can do that, or a sublingual. We can do patches. There's injections. There's a lot of different ways to do NAD. But also a couple more things that you may want to think about is CoQ10, especially if you are on a statin. You'll definitely need to be replacing that. It's naturally made in your body. Definitely great for energy and mitochondrial support. PQQ, selenium is another one. Magnesium is another one. Everybody should be on magnesium, different forms of magnesium. Magnesium is responsible for hundreds and hundreds of cellular reactions in the body.
Right.
The B vitamins, really, really important. Then, Rita, most people are I really want to give them that fast win for sure first. Then we can work on the diet. We work on diets to increasing the healthy fats, increasing the protein, so we can get those amino acids in for the brain, stabilize the blood sugar levels, incorporate some really key brain mitochondria power foods. Salmon is great for the omega-3s.
Right.
I love seaweed as a great powerful food. Avocado, nuts. You want to watch for the mold. So watch for, make sure your nuts are clean and fresh. Olive oil is a really good one. Coconut oil, blueberries, matcha, green tea or matcha. Matcha is green tea. Any kind of greens. Broccoli is a big powerhouse. And I will say the last one is my favorite, is pomegranates.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so then I would want to work at somatic work to help bring down that internal energy drain, the tension against that fatigue. So that would be really, really great. And we can go into what that would look like. Those somatic exercises are really great because they bring in that felt sense of safety. And so, there's so much behind this, and this is totally entirely new, different podcast, right? But we can just kind of do one exercise to kind of feel like we get through an exercise, an example of something. So we'll do one. I love this one. It's called doing a VU. It's a VU. You're making the.
Oh, I love that name, VU.
Yeah, VU. And so the beauty of that is you're going to take a big deep breath in, and on the out breath, you're going to do the sound of the VU and kind of just make it go like last as long as the breath. So what this is doing, it's going to create this resonation in your belly. It's going to calm the vagus nerve.
Okay.
Just remember V for Vegas, and that vagus nerve, it runs from the base of your brain, right? Goes to the heart, the lungs, the diaphragm, your digestive tract. And so what it's doing is that it's going to send a signal that you're not in immediate danger. So it sends the nervous system to calm down.
Oh, wow.
So this is a really good one. If, let's say, I do this for my clients that have fear of flying. It's a real powerful one.
Okay.
And the nice thing is that this can also create this kind of, if you want to, let's just do this one. I don't want to do too many things here, but yeah, this is going to really help you just create that base and calm, and so that you're feeling that you have some agency. And really nice. Mm-hmm. I really like to do this. So let's just do it.
Okay.
We'll do it together.
Okay.
And just think about your out breath as like a breath. And because I know some people think that the VU is like, it sounds so weird, but just feeling that resonates. It's nice to put your hand on your belly. And so we can do
so this. I'm breathing. Okay. I'm just going to follow you, but I'm breathing all the way deep down into my belly.
Yes, exactly. And this is, mind you, this is really good to do before you eat your meals, because it sends that calm relaxation.
I love that. What a great idea. I bet it's great for public speaking too, just before you go on stage.
Anytime.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
There we go.
I'm following you.
Okay. So we're going to take one deep breath in. We'll do 2 VUs. Okay.
Okay.
So inhale in. VU. So that's the VU. And there's many different ways to do the VU. You can do the VU with something called a push away, which allows you to feel more space in your body, right? Mm-hmm. For allowing, because a lot of times people have that sense of being shut down or pushed down. It's really nice to push away and allow for more energy to flow within the body. So those are just a few little samples.
That felt amazing. Can I just say that just felt amazing. So yeah, I hope you guys followed along with that, or while we're talking, you do a VU, because that's a good feeling. Okay. Fantastic. Well, that's a great little takeaway right there. I hope you guys all got that. So tell us more about, like, if people would like to know more about, like, I'm going to put your website definitely in the show notes, but tell us about anything that you want, how do we get more of Kat and your connection to this and this work?
Thanks, Rita. Yeah. I think that we're going to put a link in your show notes for a session. And then feel free to look at my website has lots and lots of free tools and action articles and steps that you can take in your life to really create a calm state and really just work with your biology and work with your nervous system. It's not one thing. It's all of it. And
Kat, I'm sorry, because I want you to explain. So tell us a little more about this session. Tell us a little more about the link where if somebody signs up, they're going to tell us what happens when they do that.
Okay.
The link.
Yeah. Okay. So when you'll see that show notes has a link, and it's a link for a 30-minute session with me. In this 30-minute session, first, what you'll do is fill out a questionnaire so we can get right down to business to see where your nervous system and your biology needs some help. Because it's not just doing one thing, it's doing all of these things that I talked about. It is getting the sleep, for sure. It is getting the sunlight. It is moving your body. Those are really important things, but it's lots and lots of things that we can kind of look at and really look to supporting your body with the protocol that works for your individual nervous system. You might be in that deep freeze, right? Or you might be stuck in that sympathetic state. And so we need to figure that out so we can do the right thing for your body, right? It's not a one size fits all protocol.
Absolutely. Now, I just want to make sure we're clear on this. This is a complimentary session, right?
Yes,
Yes. Okay. So you
complimentary.
guys, like, if you're sitting there, is this, do I pay? Do I not know?
Mhm.
A Cat is offering this as a complimentary session, a 30-minute session. So that's amazing. Like, that's so generous. And that's getting your, beak wet, as my husband would say, or dipping your toe into the water of this work, which
Right.
sounds really fascinating. Because you were saying that, especially if you've had a lot of trauma, that you can get results like get life-changing results almost immediately. You're going to, if you have a lot of trauma, you're going to see things much more clearly right up front.
And so, Rita, people are free to go to my website as well, because there's lots and lots of great tools. There's meal plans. There's some great articles on how to balance your nervous system. And I want to say that, this is a journey, and it's lifelong. I'm going through the work myself. And I'll tell you, one big secret is that all of the people that I have studied under, they have all been drawn to this work for their own nervous system, for their reason, for their own trauma. So,
right.
We're not here on this planet to go it alone. Find some support. And if I can't give you the support that you need, I am happy to find someone that can support you the way you need it.
Right. That's amazing. And you also mentioned to me that, like, if somebody's in therapy or anything, this kind of work can actually make therapy work even better.
It
right?
definitely
Like, it
can enhance
amplifies the effects of therapy because you're moving it into the body.
Absolutely. That's the key, is moving it into the body. It's somatic.
Right. You don't have to be in therapy, but if you were like, well, I'm in therapy already, well, this kind of work could actually amplify your therapy.
And any kind of therapy.
Right.
Whatever therapy doing, hypnotherapy, psychotherapy, psychiatric therapy, whatever it is, we work with it together.
That's so awesome. Okay, well, cool. Well, this has been so fascinating. And I can tell that this is sort of what you're up with, is so sort of like on the cutting edge of a lot of trauma, like what, the access people have to trauma, because there are so many different ways to approach it. But this just sounds so holistic, like you're taking into account all the parts. So this sounds great.
You said it. It is holistic, and it is. It's the missing piece in psychology, I believe, in psychology and biology. We're not separate. We're not the brain and the body. It's one thing.
Yeah, we're an organism. Yeah. Oh, well, this has been so great. So, Kat, thank you so much for your time and generosity of sharing your knowledge with us. You're always so generous. I always love having you on. It's been great to see you. So thank you for, once again, being on the Thin Thinking podcast.
Thank you, Rita. And thank you for all that you bring to the world. You really are amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. And you guys check out the show notes and definitely sign up for that 30-minute consultation. I'll be signing up now. Okay. Thank you, Kat. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kat. It was such a joy to have you on the show. And thank you, listeners. Stay cool in this hot world and take a deep VOO breath for me, and have a wonderful week. And remember that the key, and probably the only key to unlocking the door of the weight struggle, is inside you. So keep listening. And if you want to dive deeper into the mindset of long-term weight release, head on over to www.shiftweightmastery.com. That's www.shiftweightmastery.com, where you'll find numerous tools and resources to help you unlock your mind for permanent weight release, tips, strategies, and more. And be sure to check the show notes to learn more about my book, From Fat to Thin Thinking: Unlock Your Mind for Permanent Weight Loss.